Hey, good day everybody, it's Drew here, hope you're going well. And I've been looking forward to recording this video for the last 12 months. And in this video, we're going to be going over my favourite games from 2024. I've got 25 games I'm really excited to talk about, ranked from my least favourite to my favourite. And how I've been doing this throughout the year is when I finish a game, I go to my list and I put it in order of where I want it to be. And throughout the year, I cannot move it. The only way that game can move position is if something goes above it or below it. So it sort of represents how I feel about the game at the time. There's no looking back. There's no biases as far as, something I've been playing at the start of the year as opposed to something I just finished. It's all how I felt at the time, baby. So I'm really looking forward to getting into some really great games. I feel like I've played a nice diverse amount of titles. Some that I might have to stretch back to try and remember the details. Because I'm looking at some here, I'm like, yeah, that was 12 months ago. That was a long time ago. I've got to try and remember that game, especially after playing 52 games this year from start to finish. So yeah, some games might be a little bit harder to recollect, but yeah, it's been a great year for me playing games. I think the Video Game Challenge has done really well for motivating me to actually roll credits on games, get to the end, see the story through, and in some cases get the Platinum Trophy or get all the achievements or whatever have you. It's been a lot of fun gaming this year, and I know at the start of the year we were expecting the Nintendo Switch 2, but start of 2025, baby, we're on that train again. Come on, Nintendo, give us some new hardware to buy, some new games to buy. Jesus, I don't need to feed my kids. Anyway, got a nice little duck here. That's quite nice. Hello, little duck. Hope you're going well, mate. Wish I could move it, but I really can't be bothered setting it up again. So let's jump into my top 25 games for 2024. And I just want to say that I was thinking about doing a list with all of the games I completed, including games that didn't come out in 2024, but that was 52 games, and I don't have the energy for that. You don't have the time for that. So let's just do 25 games. So let's start off with my least favorite that released last year, and that's Rugrats Adventures in Gameland. And I'm a massive Rugrats fan, from when I was a little kid. There was a period in my life where Rugrats, Garfield, and The Simpsons all competed for my number one cartoon. And this game really sort of reaches back into that nostalgia. It's a game that is an NES game. The game is literally playable on NES. I think through a limited run, you could get the cartridge, plug it into your original NES, and you're able to play the game that way. But on modern hardware like Switch, PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, you can swap between two art styles. And there's one that looks like an NES game that really tickles my retro-loving brain, as well as like the nice hand-drawn art style that you could see from the 90s cartoon as well. So straight away, I was really intrigued to give it a go. I love platformers. But from the trailers, it looked a little bit basic, a little bit stiff. And of course, that sort of comes from it being an NES game, literally made in 2025. So I was keen to give it a go. It was quite expensive. I think it was like $30 or $40. If you want the physical edition, it was $60. So I was a little bit standoffish, but I'm actually really thankful that they offered the game for free on the Epic Game Store. So that's where I played it. I played it on Epic Game Store. And it's only a short game. There's only I think 5 or 6 levels, which are relatively long. They're not like a real quick Mario 1 level or something like that. But I think for me, this was the most disappointing game just because the game plays so poorly. The level design was it's boring, and it felt like it was hard and cumbersome for no real reason. I think swapping between the two art styles, you sort of had the worst of both worlds. For example, with the HD art style, you weren't actually able to recognize ledges and where you could jump and all that easily. So the best way to play it really is the NES art style. And yeah, I sort of prefer to play it in the HD purely because that really reached into my nostalgia for the cartoon. But yeah, this was the biggest disappointment for me over the year. I am glad I got the game for free on Epic Games Store. I got the Platinum Trophy on the Epic Games Store. I went and did everything. And that's how I actually became familiar with Epic Games trophy system. I really love how they sort of just poached PlayStation, you know. They literally call it a platinum trophy. Like all of the other achievements are called XP. You're earning XP, but then like the one when you get the overall achievements to 100%, that's when they literally just call it a platinum trophy. So it is funny that they just stole PlayStation's trophy system, but at the same time they've got the best one. I wish more places would just steal it, including Xbox, Steam. I kind of wish they all just had platinum trophies at this point. Why not? So yeah, Adventure in Gameland. Not too hot on that one. It kind of sucks, unfortunately. Number 24. This isn't a game I actually beat, but I played it enough and I wanted to talk about it on this list. And this is from Nintendo, Endless Ocean Luminous. And I really did want to beat this game, but the conditions for beating the game were just astronomical. And this game is a chill game. You're diving. There's no lose conditions or any of that. It is very much you're underwater. You're exploring. You're checking out, you know, the ocean life. You're scanning it. You're adding it to your encyclopedia, your Pokedex, whatever you want to call it. Your dive decks. I don't know. It just reminds me of Pokemon, just going around basically collecting data. It's a lot of fun. I played it with my friend Josh. A few multiplayer sessions, voice chat over Discord. Hanging out, and there was a lot of fun sort of discovering new fish, and there was a part where like we deep ocean dive and there was a lot of like ancient animals, sort of dinosaurs and crustaceans and all of this type of thing. It kind of felt like you were looking at Pokemon in some ways, because there was like a lot of Pokemon that reminded you of like, you know, Kabutops and Omastar and things like that. It was cool. We had a lot of fun. Ended up playing it for about 10 hours, and I really did enjoy it. But I can see myself sort of, you know, looking at the price, what I got out of it, and then like to actually like complete the game. It kind of involved you just going around scanning, and when those discoveries sort of stop happening, that dopamine stops going into your head, you're not learning anything. It is very much just, it becomes like a very, very slow process of unlocking those chapters in the single player mode. So yeah, that kind of sucks in some ways. So it's hard to recommend this game. I did receive the game free from Nintendo Australia, so very thankful for that. But yeah, it's a hard recommendation, but it is one that I did have fun with, and it was unique, and it was something that I hadn't played in a long time. Especially since like the original games on Wii, there was 2 games on Wii in the Endless Ocean series. And at the time, I was actually really into like Wii collecting. I got back into Wii. I was getting a lot of physical games. I was going to garage sales and cash converters and all of this thing, picking up Wii games. And so Endless Ocean was already on the mind. I kind of wanted to dive into it. Didn't mean to do the pun. Then anyway, so its announcement was kind of uncanny in that way. So very, very thankful for that game. It was a good week or two that I enjoyed playing it. So yeah, that was number 24. Number 23 is Princess Peach Showtime. And when this game got announced at a Nintendo Direct, it was kind of cool to see Princess Peach in the limelight again, having her own game. It's been since Super Princess Peach on the DS. And on the DS game, yeah, I never actually played it. When I was a kid, it wasn't a game that I decided to chuck my $60 down on. You know, not exactly a cheap game. But it was cool to see Princess Peach in the limelight from Goodfield, the studio behind the Yoshi Woolies world and Craft the World. So yeah, good caliber games that you know, take these Mario characters and give them their own titles. So I was looking forward to seeing what they do with this game. And overall, I found this game disappointing, and I found it really difficult to get through. I found it boring and a bit of a slog. And that's not to say it's a bad game. I think it's just a game that is made for kids. And it's funny sort of saying that as an adult that plays majority of Nintendo's releases, because Nintendo makes family games. They make kid games. And the games that I played as a kid and the games that I play now when I'm 30. But this game, truly, it's interesting just from a design point of view. It's like, well, this game doesn't really captivate me as a 30-year-old. And why is that compared to other Mario games, other Pokemon games, you know, whatever have you. But I think it's just, honestly, just the depth that's there. It is very much just like Princess Peach. She can dress up, she gets new abilities, and she goes through, and it's largely kind of forgettable, and it's just sort of monotonous in some ways. And I think it's compared to Kirby in some situations, but even Kirby, I feel like I have a lot more fun playing Kirby, going through the levels and just relaxing and seeing all the sights and, you know, sucking up the enemies and seeing what their abilities are. And yeah, I feel like there's just a lot more fun. So yeah, it was a real slog to get through this game. It's about 13-hour game, I think. But yeah, I really had to push myself through this. I was really bored. The end boss is kind of like, oh, it's, you know, a bit of a spectacle kind of thing, but you know, nothing too exciting. So definitely a game down the lower end of my list here. And this is a surprise, number 22 down this far on the list, The Plucky Squire. One of my most anticipated games going into 2024, especially from the indie point of view. Seeing James Turner basically leave Game Freak to be a part of his own studio and lead his own game, you know, obviously with some other co-founders. But I love Pokemon, massive fan of Pokemon, and I'm a big fan of Pokemon Sword and Shield, where he was the art director. And I think in hindsight as well, when it comes to Pokemon, if you look back at Pokemon Sword and Shield, yeah, that art holds up a lot better than what I would say in Scarlet and Violet. But that's a whole other conversation. So going into this, I love the aesthetic of the art book, the pictures, jumping in and out of the book, how puzzles interact, all of that. But ultimately, this is another game similar to Princess Peach Showtime, where it's just like, this is a game for kids. And that's fine. But I'm not a kid. I'm somebody who's drawn to cute, colourful, playful things, but this was another game where it's just a bit of a slog to finish. I kind of wished we had this art style, but set like with an adventure game, like a Zelda game, for example. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But it is very much like these, you know, you've got a couple of pages to work with, you're going back and forward, you can go in and out the book, and you're sort of using the puzzles, the mechanics that the game has to offer to sort of get through the levels that way. But ultimately, I felt like it was just a bit of a slog, a bit boring getting through, but it was like a nice little heartfelt story, and I'm glad I finished it. There was a couple of twists and turns in the story, which is good fun, and a couple of times where they actually used the mechanics that the game has to offer really well. So, yeah, it's not like a complete disappointment, but it is what it is. It definitely wasn't one of my favourites. Number 21 is a game called Copycat. I played it on Steam via Steam Deck. Now you can see the duck now. G'day, duck. There's a few of them around here. Yeah, so I played it on Steam Deck, and this game I played at PAX, I think, the year before, so it might have been 2023, maybe the 2022, can't quite remember, but by an Australian studio, and a very narrative-focused game based on a lady taking in a stray cat. And sort of throughout the story, you learn that, you know, she adopted you because she lost her previous cat who looked identical to you. And it turns out that cat comes back, and you get sort of kicked out of the house again. And it's an interesting sort of story about an aging woman, sort of the trials and tribulations that come with age, and, you know, dementia, all of this type of thing, as well as just like quite a heartwarming story. Involved with sort of the back and forth of, you know, being abandoned, all of that. It was quite interesting. So a few of my friends played it, who I, you know, interact with on Twitter and things, and I read a few comments saying like they cried at the end of the game and all of this. I can see why, 100%. But personally for me, you know, I didn't cry. It didn't touch me too much, but I thought it was a really interesting playthrough, about 2-3 hours from what I can remember. So, yeah, it was. I'm glad that I played it. I'm glad that I supported an Australian studio making these narrative games, because I'm all about them. But yeah, I can't say it touched me all that much, but I'm glad that I played it, because it's important that these games get made. And I think for the right person, maybe who's maybe a little bit closer to a situation like that with aging parents and all of that, I think it can definitely tickle you just under the armpit. Number 20, Little Kitty Big City, another cat game. I seem to have played a few cat games this year, and this was a great game, played on Game Pass. It's a real fun sort of sandbox where you play as this cat who's fallen out an apartment window, and you've got to get back up the building, and it's just real fun interacting with the different people in the city, other animals in the city, a lot of little side quests and things to collect, and all of that. And it's a lot of fun just jumping around as a cat. A lot of like silly moments as well. It was great. I'm glad that it was on Game Pass. It's another game that I liked, but even, say, the 3-4 hours it took to beat, I'm like, that was enough. I'm glad that it didn't outlive its welcome. It was also a pretty expensive game. It was like $30-something. And for what I got, I'm glad that I just played it on the subscription on Game Pass. So yeah, if you have Game Pass or it's offered as a part of another subscription down the line, definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. Nice little one sitting, maybe two sitting, especially if you've got kids who love animals as well. I think it's great. It was a lot of fun just sort of working out how to get to certain areas, because you need to talk to certain people, do certain quests, all of that. And like I said, the townspeople, where like you can see like one's holding a sandwich, so you run into them, they drop their sandwich, you take it. There's people that like are on their phones, and you can take their phones, and they chase after you. So it's a lot of fun. I can see like when I was a kid, where games like Mario 64, Simpsons Hit and Run, where I just used to lose myself in those worlds and just muck around in that sandbox. And this could be a similar game, but now that I'm 30, I've got like a certain amount of time and I've lost my playfulness. So maybe not. But yeah, it was a great game. Glad I played it. Number 19 is The Cub. And The Cub is a 2D side-scroller. And it's based on... it's a sequel to Golf Club Wasteland, which I played just before this as well. And it's another sort of interesting story about civilization. Earth is no longer inhabitable, so civilization goes to Mars, and this is them returning. But the Cub is, from what I understand, what I can sort of remember, is a human being that sort of got left behind, and this is a tribe of people that have adapted to New Earth, and the humans that are coming from Mars are trying to capture this cub. So a lot of the story, you're sort of running from, these people, you're doing stealth, and throughout the story as well, a lot of stories being told through sort of a radio transmission. You've gotten sort of the radio signal from Mars with the new civilization, and you're sort of learning through the radio station what's happened, what's going on. And that was the same situation in Golf Club Wasteland as well. So a great sequel to that. I probably enjoyed this more because this was more of a platformer, whereas Golf Club Wasteland was a 2D golf game. And there were some situations in the golf club. I'm not that good at golfing games. So there's a lot of situations in Golf Club Wasteland when I'm just like smacking the ball. I'm like, oh God, just go in the hole for the love of Christ. So this was like a bit more like up my alley, since I'm a big platformer fan. So yeah, I really enjoyed this game. But yeah, it's down at number 19. We're sort of getting into the games now where, there's only a few duds that I played this year, never getting into like games I actually quite enjoyed already. So thank God for that. I guess you got to expect that some ways, because if I've got limited time, why am I playing games that I don't like? These are games I finished. Like, surely you'll drop them at some point. Number 18, Duck Detective. And what's this? The Secret Salami. I forgot what the rest of the title was. This is a great game as well. I played it on Switch. It was like 2 or 3 hours long. Played it in one sitting. And a game where you're interrogating people in an office, trying to figure out who stole the salami, who ate the salami. Can't quite remember, but it was a fun game. Very quirky, very humorous. Just all of the characters. It was a good time. I can't remember like the outcome of the game. I think there was like a couple of different endings and things like that. Can't quite remember, but yes, I did enjoy my time with it. It's I played it near the start of the year, whenever the game came out, and it was the one sitting. So I'm reaching a little bit, but yeah, it was a good fun game. Next up, we got number 17 with Pepper Grinder, and from Devolver Digital. This was a really great platformer game where you've got like a drill. You can use it to like drill underground and use the momentum to like dive up, then continue like drilling through the ground. It had great momentum to it, really nice pixel art style as well, and I really did enjoy my time with the game. It wasn't that long, about 4 hours long. And my memory from the game is really enjoying it. You've got upgrades you can do throughout the game as well. Go to the store on the world map, get upgrades, health upgrades, all of that type of thing from finding like the collectibles in the game. But my main memory from it is just that last boss. That last boss was pretty tough. It was one of those bosses. I didn't have these many moments in the year because I do have 2 kids, so I can't stay up to real late or past 12 o'clock every night, because I will suffer the consequences and I will not catch up on that sleep. There is no catching up. You've got to plan out you got to be pretty strategic with your gaming. Like you got to make sure it's worth it. But this game was one that I had to make sure that I had to beat before I went to bed. I went to bed like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because that last boss was just kicking my ass. I am going to beat it because this knowledge I've learned tonight is going to go away. I know that usually you wake up and you do it easy, but no, I had to do it that night. So I ended up beating it. Thank God. I was happy and I moved on with my life. But yeah, this was a great game. Really happy I got it. This was actually a game that I actually received from Devolver Digital. Got a review code just for full transparency. But this was a game I really enjoyed. It was a good time, and I hope to see more sort of indie games like this. Not that we don't get many 2 platformers in the indie section. Number 16 is RZ, The Jewel of Faramore. And when I saw this, for the first time at the start of the year, or maybe just like December in 2022, of 23, sorry, I knew that I had to play this. This is a game that's based on the CDI versions of the Legend of Zelda games. The Legend of Zelda games, the infamous games that were not made, by Nintendo. And it was just really funny seeing like the cutscenes. Just looks like it's been ripped from the game, but obviously made of its own. And I was a big fan of like the YouTube poop scene back in the late 2010s, or even 2000s. It was so funny. Bryce and I, my best friend Bryce, we used to just watch all these different versions of YouTube poop, and it's just the dumbest humor. It's barely even funny, but for whatever reason, man, like we just used to love that type of stuff. So yeah, the idea of a game being based on that, and not only that, is they made it a good version of what those games were. 2D adventure games, world map, you've got to go back and forth, different items to progress. It isn't just like a linear game. You've got to go back and forth to the town, get secrets, all this type of thing. They did a great job with this title, and I think a lot of people should play it if you are a fan of adventure games, of platformers, or like me, you want to go and check out the CDI games, but a good version of them. Especially if you can't be bothered with emulation and all that type of thing. I don't know if the Philips CDI has all that good emulation on PC, but yeah, definitely go and check this one out if you haven't already. It was a lot of fun. And the voice acting and stuff as well. Like, they got the original voice actors from the Zelda CDI games. At least a few of them, from what I understand. So, yeah, really sort of... really interesting sort of parody of those Zelda games. So, yeah, one of my most memorable games from that year, that's for sure. Number 15 is Mario vs. Donkey Kong, the remake of the Game Boy Advance game. And I loved Mario vs. Donkey Kong on Game Boy Advance. Really enjoyed it. And it was one of those games where I was like, cool, we're getting a remake, $70, all of that type of thing. But I would have been quite happy just having Donkey Kong Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance Nintendo Switch Online service. But here we are. We, for a good amount of money, we're getting a full remake. Just graphics, it looks really nice. Even like the title screen, you can see like just the stitching in Mario's hat and all of that. It's very detailed. It was very nice. And a lot of content here if you want to play it. So you can play through the whole game, you can get the collectibles. And once you finish the game, you can basically replay through the whole game again and play it in a different mode, more collectibles, all of this. So there's a lot of content here. There's hours upon hours of content if you want 100% this game. But I was quite happy to play through it once. And that was all. I didn't have to replay it again. But yeah, a great puzzle platformer. It's not my favorite Mario vs. Donkey Kong game, or favorite Donkey Kong game in this sort of style. My favorite Donkey Kong game is Donkey Kong 64 on the original Game Boy. That is a phenomenal game. It's so much fun. And I'd love to see that on Nintendo Switch Online. That'd be good. Speaking of Donkey Kong and Nintendo Switch Online, that will get me hyped. I would like to play that. I've got a physical card. I've got it on 3DS, but I want it on Switch. I've got to blow those pixels up on the TV and play it on an OLED screen. That'd be nice. So yeah, definitely a recommendation. But I think the Switch, like last year, it's getting to the point where a lot of these games for say $70 or $80 are like, they're pushing it. they're pushing it. Like today, I'm recording on the day Donkey Kong Country Returns HD comes out, and that's a full price $80 game. And it's like, it's a great game. It's one of the best platformers of all time. I love it so much. But it's a 15-year-old game, not really being touched up that much. And it's, you know, it's a premium title. It's a brand new game price. It's I'd like to see, of course I'd like to see them be a bit cheaper, but I feel like they're kind of pushing it a little bit. Like if any other company did this, it'll be, yeah, the community would be very upset. But regardless, if you get this on sale, you look at it, you want to play it, yeah, definitely check it out. If you haven't already, you probably already have, if it's your type of thing. Number 14. I can't believe it's this low, to be honest with you, but the list is what the list is. Never. Really beautiful game from the developers of Gris, and just a beautiful, just, I don't know, watercolor art style. Don't know how to describe it, but one of the most striking and stunning games I've ever played. And I played it on PlayStation 5 because I wanted the HDR, I wanted it on the OLED TV, I wanted it to pop. And it was a story that's really moving. You know, Neva is your companion, and throughout the game, they're basically growing up from a cub to a full-grown deer, wolf dog thing, whatever have you. It's like a big wolf, white wolf with like antlers or tree sticks or I don't know, whatever going on. But a really emotional story that's only told through the actions that you're seeing on screen, as well as like the tone the main characters say never, whether it's like never come over here or never, like, you know, you're in trouble type of thing. It was a really heartwarming experience. And it's another game as well that I loved. I got all the trophies on PlayStation 5, got the Platinum Trophy, really enjoyed it, went back and did what I needed to do. And it's a game that I will remember for a long time, but it didn't make me cry, it didn't get me too emotional. At the end, actually, it was a little bit unclear to me what the whole point of the story was. The way they put it together, without spoilers, of course, the way they sort of shown it to the player, I'm like, oh, it's a bit of a thing. But, you know, Googling on Reddit and things like that, that is not the case. Not the case of what they showed them. Oh, okay. So I thought they were going somewhere else just with how they presented it. I know that's a little bit sort of not all that clear, but yeah, I don't want to spoil anything because, yeah, I think it's a great game. Definitely worth playing. Number 13 is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. And I played Hellblade 1 for the first time, played it just before, then I went straight into Hellblade 2. And both of these games are something else, like nothing else I've ever played in my life. And that's a good thing. I think it's really interesting that this game really highlights a mental condition that, you know, a lot of us don't think about. And it's something that it's hard to perceive when someone just explains it to you. Like somebody says like, hey, I'm hearing these voices in my head. And it's like, I think for most of us are kind of like, okay, that sounds a bit psychotic, you know, get some help or whatever have you. But to actually like be put in the shoes of Senua and have these voices in the back of her head, and as she's working through the trauma of what's going on, as well as just like those voices playing into gameplay situations where those voices sort of make you feel like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going the right way? You know, just sort of, you know, you're taken back just like, am I doing the right thing? Let alone, you know, obviously what's going on in her head and what you're seeing of the story. But that's sort of the cool thing about video games. And I'm glad this is a video game and not a movie, because if it's just a movie, you're just watching it, it's like, oh, you know, there's a lot of voices going on and all of that. It's like, okay, this is a bit weird. But when you're actually physically moving the stick around, looking around, trying to work out, there's a lot of puzzles where you've got like match shapes and just, you know, it gets a little bit boring after a while, I gotta admit, just sort of like, where's the shape? You know, you've got to like, it's got like a triangle and you've got to like look around in the world and see it at a certain angle to match it up. So, you know, that's gets a little bit monotonous, especially after playing both the games, one after another. But yeah, what they do from a storytelling aspect and how that plays into gameplay, really cool. But ultimately, after finishing the game, I'm like, that was great, but you know, it's not one of the narrative experiences that really stands out to me. I think they told a cool story, and like in the second game, how you're looking basically for revenge for your tribe after what happened in the first game, and yeah, I think it's just. I know like some people that really resonated with and other people that didn't resonate at all. I feel like in between both of those opinions. I think it was a powerful story, but at the same time, there are other games out there that resonated more with me. But I'm certainly glad that I played it because, like I said, there is nothing else like these two games out in the market. There's nothing else. A game that, you 100% have to have a quiet area, headphones on, and just lock yourself into that audio experience and press the play button and go. It was sort of a contentious game at the start of this year because a lot of people were relying on it to be Xbox's Last of Us or Uncharted or big storytelling moment. And a lot of that hype was built up over the last year because this was a game that was announced side by side with the Series X at the Game Awards all those years ago. So a lot of expectations were put onto it, and Xbox sort of came out with no marketing or anything, just put the game out there, just popped it out of the butthole and didn't really push it at all, and it was forgotten about real quick. And it's sad in some ways. I hope Ninja Theory are able to continue to do what they want to do. I can't say I'm aching for a Hellblade 3. Actually, in fact, I'm really not. I feel kind of satisfied with the two games, but let's see where we go from here. I think the next game's going to be a horror game, and you can imagine like that audio experience mixed in with horror is going to be it could be something really special. So Ninja Theory, definitely a studio to look towards, especially like with a format like Xbox Game Pass, where if they make 5-hour games every 3 years or something, I think it'd be great. But for the amount of time that it took for Hellblade 2 to come out, I feel like it was just a little bit too overcooked in some ways, and I think Xbox didn't really put all they needed to put into it. I think they took the marketing budget, put it into the game, and just never marketed it, for better or for worse. But yeah, a great experience I played last year, very unique, certainly different to everything else I played, but not my favourite game, I guess. Number 12, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. Played it on Switch. It's exclusive to the Switch, so of course I played it there. And I hadn't played through a Super Monkey Ball game before. I've dabbled in them. I had Banana Blitz on Wii all those years ago. Played the GameCube games. There's a version on DS. Played a few of them, but this was the first one I played right through, and this was a great one. As you're going through the courses, there's a story in the background, and with cutscenes and all this. And this is honestly one of the only games where I've just like skip the cutscene. I couldn't care less about the story of what was going on. When I finished the game, the main bad guy was, being defeated or whatever. I had no idea what was going on, like literally no idea. And I didn't mind that. But the levels themselves were a lot of fun, and I could see people that are really interested in like time attack and all of that. Trying to beat scores, get the collectibles in the levels and all of that in one sweep. I think that'd be great. But I just basically played through it, did what I needed to do, and there was a couple of levels that really gave me a hard time. Just from, there was one where it's like a big loop-de-loop, and then you've got to like land on the goal. And I assume it was just me, but like the camera really wasn't designed for that particular maneuver I had to do, or at least how I perceived I had to do it anyway. So, but that was my only sort of drawback from it. I really enjoyed picking up the Switch, playing through a couple of levels. There's like 10 levels in the main story, and once you finish that, there's like you can play it all again with like more difficulty or something, as well as like there's a massive multiplayer suite as well. And I didn't need the multiplayer. There's like it's like similar to Fall Guys, not as many players, but there's like one where you gotta like get to the goal the fastest and all of that. There's a massive multiplayer suite, but I was mainly just interested in the single player, going through that. So yeah, great game. Number 11 is Thank Goodness You're Here. And look, just before I started this list, I just kicked it out of the top 10. This was a really funny game. It's the funniest game I played all year. An indie game where you're playing in basically like a little British town, little village, and you're playing as this little man. And the gameplay, I had no idea what the gameplay was before I started it. It was only like when I started playing it, because I saw like the cutscenes, the humor, the voice acting. It was all funny. It's all very like British, very just like just goofy, like, you know, similar to like, I guess, like Wallace and Gromit and like maybe cartoons that you know, you watched as a kid from there. But no idea what the gameplay was. And it's basically you're going around this village in like a 2D top-down point of view, playing as this little yellow man, and the way you interact with other villagers is just slapping them. And it's just like the sound and the animation when you slap them, it's so funny and humorous. And you're going around this village basically doing little puzzles, helping out the townsfolk. You're going throughout the village. Then it gets to a point where you sort of loop around and you see like the story progressing in these different areas as you're going around. You might loop around like 5 to 10 times. I can't quite remember, but there's a bunch of like sub-stories you do along the way, and those sub-stories give you certain things or unlock sort of pathways so you can progress throughout this village. And there's like multiple times where you've got to progress through the same path. So for example, like to get to the next area in the game, you've got to go down the chimney. So you go down this, you go onto a roof, you go down the chimney, and every single time you go down this chimney, there'll be this man saying, "Oh, look, that's okay, I'll clean it up," because you put soot everywhere, you know, all through his lounge room. And then you keep playing the game, you obviously do the lap, you go down this chimney again, and there's just, you put stuff everywhere. It's like, "Oh, that's okay, you know, I'll clean it up." And you do that for like another 5 times, and like by the end of it, he's just friggin' fed up with you. Just, it's so funny. There's like multiple moments like that where you're interacting with these characters again and again and again on a loop. And it was a great time. It's about a 3-hour game. And judging from the Steam achievements, I missed a couple of side quests, because there's basically like achievement for each little side quest you can do, and I probably missed like maybe 3 of them. So yeah, there's some good replay value there to go back and maybe finish up some of the story moments you didn't see. So yeah, this was a great game, man. This was a lot of fun. Another one which is super unique that I haven't seen anything like it, from the humor to like just like the cutscenes, the animation, as well as just like what you're actually doing, like how the game's set up. Because it's not like an adventure game, it's not like a platformer, it's not like one of these genres. It is very much like how to describe this game, and I think that's why the marketing team describes it as a slapformer, because it's like, it's not really like, you're not platforming, but like, I guess you are a little bit, and you're going around slapping everyone just to interact with them. It's like the only button you've really got apart from like moving around the joystick. So yeah, fantastic game. Please go and check it out if you haven't already. Number 10, and I put this in just before because this is a game where I'm like, is this technically a game that came out in 2024? And yes, it is, because this is a game that is a ROM hack, a ROM hack of an existing game that is one of my all-time favorites, one of my childhood favorites. And this is a ROM hack, a Pokemon Emerald version. And the ROM hack's called Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass. And this is truly one of the best Pokemon games I've played in the last 10 years. And do I say that because it's based off of one of my favorite games of all time, my favorite Pokemon game? Yes, of course. Of course. There's some bias going into it. But what this game does to Pokemon Emerald is truly fascinating. And when I first saw it, just a glimpse of like a battle scene, I'm like, wow, that looks amazing. So for those of you that don't know, Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass, which I assume is a good amount of you if you're not into like the ROM hacking scene, which I'm not either, but this has got me into it, it is like a demade version of Pokemon Emerald. So it looks more aligned to what you'd get on the Game Boy Color with Pokemon Crystal version, but the whole game's been made to look like a Game Boy Color game. But I will say it looks like an advanced Game Boy Color game. It doesn't look like literally gold and silver. But it has like a beautiful art style. Like the pixel art is just immaculate. It is stunning seeing Hoenn being made to look like this. And not only did they do that, they remade some towns like Fort Tree City, for example. It's up in the trees. They made it just on the ground and completely sort of changed it, as well as like Petalburg City, where it's got like a river going through it, and there's multiple towns that look different. And they've also added like a bunch of different side quests and side activities to the game as well. So in Pacifilog towns, so there's the city that's in the middle of the ocean that you go to late game in Pokemon Emerald. You can actually go to that earlier from Slateport City, and in there they have a scuba safari similar to the bug catching contest that you'll find in Pokemon Gold and Silver. And in that, you'll go underground or underwater, and you'll be able to catch certain underwater Pokemon. You've got a certain amount of time and a certain amount of steps to do it. And once you complete that, you come up and you're judged against the other 2 NPCs. And whoever caught the best Pokemon underwater is the winner of that. So that's one of the side quests. There's another one called a Wishing Well, where you find wishing stars throughout the game. You're able to go back to this wishing well and put it in and get a random Pokemon. Just at random. It could be any of the first evolution Pokemon throughout the game. And it's just there's a lot of things like that. New added gameplay mechanics to the game. A lot of fun. As well as like adding all of the Pokemon from the first 3 generations, as well as some bonus ones. There's like Tinkaton from the latest generation, the Applin evolution line. I think the developer, they just put in some of their favorites beyond there, which is kind of cool. I think they were a big Tinkaton fan. So yeah, just a really great ROM hack. There's so many quality of life features as well, bringing the mechanics from later Pokemon games, like the special physical split for defense, special attack, all of that stuff that wasn't in Generation 3. It was introduced in Generation 4. So yeah, a lot of quality of life features, beautiful art style, and just adding in more content. This is truly one of my favorite Pokemon games. And I know it was made by one person, it's improved on an existing Pokemon game. And truly, I feel like, since I'm a massive fan of the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Advance Pokemon games, I love that it's a different art style, but I feel like if the art style was the same as base Pokemon Emerald, and all of these things were added, the quality of life features, more content, all of that, this would honestly be my favorite Pokemon game. Just over the base one, over all that, just what they've done to it is really amazing. And I actually played through it on my Analog Pocket. I got a physical copy of Pokemon Sea Glass on Etsy, and that just enhanced the experience all that more, just having like a real tangible version of it that I was playing on, I guess legit hardware, not just emulating it or whatever. Yeah, one of my favorite experiences in the last game that I played in 2024. So yeah, this is my only community-made game that's on this list. But truly, it was one of the best games I played, and it was a really nice experience for me as well, being a massive Pokemon fan. And it just rejuvenated my excitement for the series. For a long time, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet being the last game that I played, I'm like, oh, man, like, it's got a lot of good things about that game, don't get me wrong, but man, Game Freak they don't really seem to care about their community all that much, their customers, or Nintendo or whatever. Like, whoever's in charge of that thing, like, you've got to do better next time. Fingers crossed for Legends Arceus, Legends X, ZX. What's it called? ZA, that's right, ZA. Yeah, so yeah, I loved it, man. It's rejuvenated me as far as my Pokemon hype goes, and it's also like a good sort of sign for me, being like, look, if the Pokemon games that are currently coming out aren't that good, if it make you feel like, man, I don't like the series anymore, just go back to what you enjoyed. Because, I'm 30 years old. I feel like an elder millennial at this point, being like, oh, the good old days when Pokemon were sprites. If that's how I truly feel, man, just go back and play the amazing games the community are making, because they're making exactly what us Pokemon fans my age, or that I want anyway. Because after playing Sea Glass, I came across another Pokemon Emerald ROM hack where it was base Pokemon Emerald, but they had a bunch of customization features built into it as well, where it was like had a built-in Nuzlocke mode. And I hadn't seen this before, because for those that don't know, not familiar with Pokemon, Nuzlocke is a community-made challenge that people use to make Pokemon a little bit harder. And, when a Pokemon faints, you can't use it anymore. It's gone forever. It's stuck in the box, or you release it. You can only catch the first Pokemon on each route, so you can't really plan out a team. It's all a bit random. All of that. So this has like a built-in Nuzlocke mode, so it forces you to not be able to catch any more Pokemon after the first Pokemon. It forces you to release a Pokemon once you've beaten it. or once it's fainted and all of that. But it has like, you can customize it to your heart's content at the start. So yeah, Pokemon Modern Emerald is the name of that ROM hack, and it's opened up a whole new world to me that I really, really enjoy. So very thankful for Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass. It was absolutely fantastic. Really great game. And I recommend anybody go and check it out if you're a fan of Pokemon. Number 9 is Cat Quest 3. And Cat Quest, I love this series. I played through Cat Quest, was it 1? I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. But truly just a real fun game where, you know, you play as a cat. It's an adventure game, top-down perspective. Kind of similar to a Zelda game, but, you know, there's leveling sort of features, all of that. Where you go into dungeons, you're hacking and slashing, you're upgrading your items, you're upgrading your shields, and you're leveling up throughout the game. And, you know, the first game wasn't all that long. It was like a sitting for me. I think I did it in 5 hours. It was a really great game just to dive into and play, and I really enjoyed it. So went into Cat Quest 2 last year as well, and then with the sequel coming out, I was looking forward to diving into that one as well. But Cat Quest 3, I feel like I didn't enjoy it as much. I feel like the exploration was just a little bit more tedious as far as, you know, being on the boat. So this game introduced being on the boat. The whole game's pirate themed. So you're able to, you know, travel around on the boat and all of that. I don't know if I was just like Cat Quested out at this point, but I certainly felt it would be a little bit more of a slog, being like, all right, where do I go? What do I do here? All of this, but the games are leading up to something that's going to be quite special narratively. Just looking at them before playing them, you wouldn't expect it to be such a narrative-heavy game, but a lot of these aspects from the game is coming together. There's an antagonist that is stretching over all of these games. That's going to, like, you know, something big is going to happen in Cat Quest 4, which has been teased at the end of this game. So yeah, I love the series. I'll continue to play it. But yeah, I'm not sure if something with Cat Quest 3 didn't hit quite as much as the other two, or I just sort of had enough. But I feel like I just had more fun not being on the ship. I feel like that was a little bit more tedious. But yeah, I love the series overall. Number 8 is Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. And this was a game that has been in the ether for a long time. I found out about it a couple of years ago on the PlayStation Store, looking at it. Just beautiful anime art style, looks great. And for the most part, it's kind of set up as like an online game where, like, you can play as so many different characters. You can go and level up, take down monsters, all this type of thing. So that's a big component of the game. And honestly, I didn't really play it all that much, but there is a single player story that really did actually captivate me, where, you know, one of your teammates, they've been kidnapped. They've got like a power that the antagonist, they're trying to utilize for themselves. And throughout the game, you're sort of getting to know the antagonist and the protagonist, and, you know, their motivation. And obviously there's twists and turns along the way. And it's a story that I actually really did enjoy. I actually like hearing other people talk about this game. You know, they say that the story isn't really a highlight, but when the game finished, man, like, the production value of what this game has to offer, like the cutscenes and the graphics, just how it all runs. I found it like a lot of fun. Just the gameplay, it was awesome. Just being able to, in some ways, it's a little bit mindless, especially for me, because I set it to easy. That's kind of the experience I wanted with this game. Is just going into hordes of enemies and hacking them up and leveling up and swapping around different characters. It was great. I actually really did enjoy it. It's one of my it was a game that I really needed at the time too, because it's kind of like after work. It's just like I didn't need anything too like strenuous type of thing, but this is exactly what I needed. When the game wrapped up, I felt very satisfied with the story. And if they were ever to do a Grand Blue Fantasy Relink 2 or anything like that, I'd be all about a sequel. I'll pick it up for sure. There is sort of a bit of this game where it is based off of a mobile game. Cygames, the developers of this game, are mobile games, game makers mostly. So this is their first console game, and yeah, so there was some like assumed knowledge of the series, so it sort of just jumped straight into it, which isn't too bad. That might be even a benefit in some ways. I don't need like that big a backstory, and there's certainly like lots of pieces you can read that you collect along the way that give you more, I guess, look into the backstory of the world and the characters and everything. So yeah, go and check that out. I'm sure it's on a decent sale these days, so go and check it out. Number 7, another game from Nintendo. It's been a little while since we had actually it hasn't been. The last one was Mario vs Donkey Kong. But number 7 is Emio the Smiling Man. And this is my favourite Nintendo game that they released this year. And it was a surprising one. There was the marketing team at Nintendo tried something a little bit different, being like, ooh, Emio, who's this type of thing. Everyone's like, oh my God, they're doing like Nintendo doing a horror game. What's going on here? This is crazy. Like, it's going to be like their Resident Evil or their Silent Hill or something crazy. Nintendo's going to be doing something nuts. But no, it turned out to be another Famicom Detective Club game, which in a lot of ways is nuts, because apart from remakes on Switch, that series hasn't been touched in a very long time since before I was a video game player. That's for sure. So it was cool to see another game in this series come out. So I was all open to play it. I hadn't played any of the other games in the Famicom Detective Club series, so I was open to play it. I remember at the time, I think it came out July. I remember being busy with something. So honestly, if it wasn't for doing the podcast, The House of Mario, I don't know if I would have jumped straight into it. And if I didn't jump straight into it, I could have seen myself missing it. And honestly, that would have been a massive disappointment to miss out on this game. This was a really cool story. And I'm all about these visual novel games, but I honestly don't play them. I don't get drawn to them. I've been wanting to play like Danganronpa and a few others throughout the years, but I just never get around to them. It's something that obviously doesn't draw my eye enough to put it over maybe anything else I'm playing at the time. But I think it helps that it is a Nintendo game, so I was pushed to play it there, and I did receive a code from Nintendo Australia, which of course helps out as well when there's this many games to play in the year. But like I said, I was very thankful that I was able to play this game, because going through it, it's a slow build-up. Sort of, what's happening. You find out that this young man has committed suicide. He's got the bag over his head. You're learning about the urban myth that is Emio, the Smiling Man. Somebody that appears under certain circumstances. You're talking to people throughout rural Japan, and it's a very slow process. And then towards the end of the game, it ramps up, and Nintendo had a very unique way of really revealing it all to you at or towards the end. No spoilers, of course. So it was a game that really impressed me. It was a lot of fun going through it, because like I said, I don't typically jump into these types of games, but when it was announced, I'm like, I am actually quite excited to play through like a murder mystery like this. It's been a little while since I've watched a TV show or movie or anything to do with a murder mystery, so it was a nice change of pace for me. So definitely recommend it. I know a lot of fans, a lot of Nintendo players would have skipped this game, but honestly, if you were to spend your money on any Nintendo game over the last year or so, check out Emio. Definitely worth it. Something different. And I think I should get into some more visual novel games. And I know my co-host on the House of Mario, Josh, feels the same way. So maybe we should link up and play some more of these games, man, because they're really good. Number 6, Tales of Kenzera Zao. This is a Metroidvania game. And, man, when this game was announced at the Game Awards, I can't quite remember the name of the head of the studio, so apologies for that. But sort of the story of it, this is a game based off of his experience with his father, and the story of this game is coming to terms with loss, going through the process of grief, losing a loved one. And in the case, the main character of this game has lost his father, and the game's about continuing on his legacy, continuing to be there for the other people in his life. And there's a lot of, for me, there was a lot of good moments that I've learned from this game, about, being a man, manning up, but also obviously showing your emotions and being vulnerable as well, and how this game sort of tackles those themes was really eye-opening and special. So it had that going for it, which was amazing. But it also was a really fun Metroidvania game, really great. It was like a 10-hour game to 100%. I got the Platinum Trophy over on PS5, and it was so much fun to just go around and experience this game. The main gameplay, you're going around, obviously Metroidvania, you're getting items, you're getting abilities, but you've also got like these two different powers. You've got the power of the sun, the power of the moon, and those work better on certain enemies. One's long range, one's more close up and physical. So as you're sort of in boss fights or just hordes of enemies, you're able to like manipulate your different abilities and utilize them, and sort of as you're linking them together, whether like it's a bow and arrow with the sun power going to the moon, big punch, it becomes very satisfying to play. It was a really great sort of combat system, and I feel like the size of the overall map and it's sort of pointing to where you need to go, as well as just being a nice amount of collectibles, nothing too unwieldy, was a really great sort of, I guess, way of doing a Metroidvania as well. It wasn't too big, it wasn't too small. I finished it in the weekend, nice 10-hour experience, great story. I really don't have anything bad to say about it. Like, it was great. It was kind of a perfect Metroidvania, I've got to be honest with you, just how it felt. And it's interesting that it's behind another certain game, because like I said at the start of this video, I put these games where they are and I can't move them. And everything I say about this game makes me feel like I should have shifted it with the next one. I'll bring up the next one now. We've got the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. That's at number 5. And I love Prince of Persia. It was one of the first games I played in the year. Got a great value for my money too. Played it on Ubisoft Plus. So I played it over on Xbox and PC with the ROG Ally. And this is an amazing Metroidvania. Gameplay is phenomenal, just with how, you're able to juggle enemies and use your different abilities as you're progressing through the game. It really does feel like a fighting game in some ways. It's phenomenal. It's really cool. But just what I talk about with Kenzera Zao, I think in hindsight, I feel like Zao was just the perfect length and the perfect amount of content, where Prince of Persia, like, there's so much there. You got such a dense map. It's about a 20-so-hour story to complete the game. And that's cool, but I think I prefer just half that length, and being able to see everything, do everything, and how satisfying it felt. So in hindsight, I'm kind of looking back, being like, Kenzera Zao, I feel like I could have shifted it, but at the time, this is how I felt. When I beat Kenzera Zao, I probably thought about the exact same thing, and maybe with a bit more of a fresh memory of Prince of Persia, maybe I'm forgetting some things that I really liked about that game. But yeah, I mean, Prince of Persia is kind of in the same boat. Like, great story, great villain, gives you like really good motive to hunt them down and stop them from doing whatever they're doing. Real flashy game, and it's one of the just Ubisoft Montpellier, just a really special studio. And unfortunately, with the not much success with this game, that studio has been disbanded or shut down or downsized or whatever's happened with that studio. It's really unfortunate, dude, because this game kicks ass, and their Rayman games and everything, they were what makes me excited for Ubisoft, honestly. Like, all the Prince of Persia games, I want to go back and play them. I have no experience with Prince of Persia apart from this game. So yeah, it sucks, man. I wish more people would pay attention to some of these games, but it's just hard to compete with all the bigwigs out there. A lot of people are just playing Fortnite, Apex Legends and all that. And I think when it comes to people looking for single player experiences, that's already small. But when it comes to like 2D Metroidvanias, it's even smaller than that. And I think Ubisoft maybe learnt that the hard way, but maybe it's also on Ubisoft as well to sort of foresee that and not put so much into the game. Like, the game could have been half the length and a little bit cheaper and probably would have sold a lot better. I don't know. Because when you see the credits of Prince of Persia, like hundreds of people worked on this game. Like it's kind of crazy for like what this game is. And you can see it in the game, but at the same time it's like, I don't know. Do you expect that to make a profit then? I don't know. I don't really care. I don't care about that until the studio shuts down. Just the realities of what these companies expect. So yeah, it kind of sucks all around, but an amazing game. Like I said, I played it on Ubisoft Plus, but when the game come down to $30, I picked up a physical copy on PlayStation 5, and it was great. Really happy that I got the physical copy. And actually, at the same time, I picked up the Crew Motorfest as well, which is another game I played on Ubisoft Plus on the same month, and that was a great game as well. So picked up a copy of that. So yeah, I don't know. Ubisoft's doing good stuff. It's just they're in a shit spot at the moment. So fingers crossed for them. Make a Rayman game, that will save you. I'll buy it, that's for sure. I'll make sure I buy it too. I won't put it on Ubisoft Plus. I will buy it at Ubisoft. I promise. So yeah, there's 2 amazing Metroidvania games that came out this year. Really great. Two sides of the same coin, essentially. One's long, one's not as long, but definitely a recommendation. I think Kinzera Zao, a lot of people overlooked it. Definitely go and play it. I'm not like even like on the Nintendo side of things. Metroid, I got to force myself to play it. I don't love it, but I like it. But these 2 games I had a lot of fun with, so easy recommendations. Number 4, alrighty, so we're getting into the serious stuff here now, and this is one that I feel like a lot of people might scoff at, especially if you've played it, and definitely relate to that. Let's talk about it. So yeah, number 4 is Life is Strange Double Exposure, and this is a game that I look at, and I can see so many problems with it on the writing side of things. And it's a game that if I met the writer, if I sat down with him at the dinner table, I would think like, why on earth did you make this situation? Why did you write it like this? Why did you make this character say that? Why is this conclusion like this? There are so many questions I would have to the writing team. But it does play off a lot of how I feel about the first game as well. The first game, Life is Strange, that came out 10 plus years ago, is one of the most influential games to what I expect from a story. And at first glance, there's a couple of teenage girls being goofballs, being cringy, all of that. I remember the reviews at the time, like, oh, this game's so cringy. It is. I mean, Christ, if there was a game based on little 15-year-old Drew, Jesus Christ, that would be cringy as shit. But the first Life is Strange is a game that took me on a roller coaster of emotions, that diverted my expectations, that made me see the world differently through choices that I was sure of, and then it turned out to be completely the opposite outcome that I wanted. I'm like, oh my God, like not everything in life is black and white. And so that game and Before the Storm, very special games to me. I haven't played any of the other games from the series, purely because of how they released the games, episodic. Remember like Life is Strange 2, it took like a year to get all those episodes out, and by the time the last one came out, I must have just forgotten about it or moved on or whatever. But after playing this game, I want to go back to the other 2. But with Life is Strange Double Exposure, Max Caulfield, the main character from the first game, she's back, she's older, she's a teacher at a university, a college, whatever. So she's grown up, she's gone through different things, and you can sort of see how she's sort of grown up over the years and all that. It's just nice to have that familiar character back. So that's where a lot of the love comes from this game, and the surrounding cast as well, all likable, all just great, sort of finding out like who they are, their backstories, a bit of drama, of course. It's a Life is Strange game, young adults, you got to have some drama. But like I said, there's some really interesting concepts that they set up in this game. That like the first 3 episodes of this game, it's 5 episodes all up. It's like, it sets it up, being like, what's going to happen next? And then it sort of tees it up, and it doesn't really hit it out the park. It's like, why would you do this? I feel like it was satisfying enough for me, but going on Reddit, looking at YouTube videos, all of this thing just to see how other people feel about the game. A lot of people are not happy. People hate this game. So the fact that it's number 4 on my list, I think people would be like, no. But I will say, like, the game ends. Obviously, no spoilers. No spoilers in this video. But the way the game ends, it's not like the first game. The first game was like, oh my god, you have 2 choices, and the consequences for the other side are huge. This game, it sort of just ends. And, you know, you have a bit to think about. There's some things that are brought up. There's also big connotations that the Life is Strange series will continue. And sales for this game have not been good. So that's a little bit up in the air as well. It's another game I'm going to be disappointed if we don't get a sequel to. Because I feel like this game, what it sets up is very interesting. It could be very cool, but it could also completely dislodge and remove what makes Life is Strange special. Be very interesting to see what they do with this series. But when I finish the game, I feel like my emotions swelled because of how I felt about the characters. You know, all the characters, you know, they've gone through this dramatic thing, and you can go and talk to them all and see how they're feeling about what happened. And then as you're doing that, like, you're all getting back together, and then like this certain song plays, and I don't know, it's just that musical moment just hit me so hard. And there's only been a few moments like that in games that I can recall to. I'm like, oh my god, that song just played at the perfect time, just as the game ends. You know, just the ending cutscene, and that song sort of like plays into the credits, and it gave me goosebumps. And it was one of like it was one of my favorite moments of the year. And it's hard to put into words, because like, I know that like the ending of the game wasn't like, oh my god, like I can't explain it, especially without spoilers, but it's something that gives me chills when I think about. And that specific song has become my number 1 song played on Apple Music in 2024 as well. I binged that song literally all week after I finished it. It was a really special game, which is not by any means perfect. There's so many things wrong with the game, but I loved it. And I hope that they continue with the series. And I hope the writers take into account why a lot of people don't like this game. Because there were some decisions like, what? Like, it didn't even make sense. And it wasn't that clear. And it's like, yeah, it was really baffling. It really was. Like, yeah, no, interesting game. I'll be looking forward to talking to anybody in the comments what you feel about Life is Strange Double Exposure if you've played it. Because, yeah, I feel like I loved it, but I've got some criticisms. I've got way more criticisms than any other game on this list, because I care about it so much. But, yeah, very, very interesting game. Hopefully we get a sequel and they continue on the series and continue evolving on that. But this brings us to our top 3. And at number 3, my third favourite game of the year is Farewell North. And I discovered this game just randomly on Steam. I was on my Steam Deck, and I'm like, oh, so this is a game, beautiful, colourful art style, seeing in the screenshots. You're playing as a border collie. And if you remember earlier on my list, playing a lot of games as cats. You know, played Stray a couple of years ago, Copycat, and Little Kitty Big City. I'm like, all right, I've had enough of cats. You know, I'm definitely a dog person when it comes to like the two. So playing as a border collie, I'm like, fantastic. It's based in the Scotland Highland. You're going between different islands. I'm like, interesting. So I'm reading more about it. It's a narrative game. It's made by one developer as well as like a bunch of contractors and things like that as well. And the music in the trailer was just phenomenal. This is another game that I guess the music just got me as well. So I'm like, oh, I've got to pick this game up. You know, it was 10% or whatever, like a launch day sale on Steam. So I'm like, all right, we've got to get this. So put down, I think it was like $36. You know, that's quite a lot for a game where I'm just like, what is this type of thing? But I just had to play it. And the sort of main setup for the story is, you're playing as a border collie, and you're going back to these Scottish Highland islands to with your owner, who's a young adult female, and she's going back to say like goodbye to she's trying to let go of the emotions of the death of her mother, and you're going to like where they grew up, like the farm, the gravesite, all these types of things. And you're going, and the game, it's sad, and you're basically, as you're going to these different areas, you're bringing light or color back to the landscape. And so a lot of the game, you're actually going through it, it's in like black and white, which in some ways, I get it, but it's also disappointing because the game is so pretty once you fill in that color. But I guess that makes it all that more rewarding once you actually like bring light back to the area, once you sort of come to terms with, the emotions, the memories that you have, all of that. So you're going into it thinking that it's going to be a sad game. And I got to be honest, like, I'm like, oh, well, it's going to be sad, the mum, all of this, it's sad stuff. It's all fears that a lot of us have. And I know that I have with aging parents and all of that. It's something that I'm like, it's going to be like the worst day of my life when when I've got to deal with the emotions that are being displayed in this game. So yeah, it was a tough game, but as the game unfolds, I think the game, it shocked me just with how everything ends up. It was another very special game that blindsided me, that used music to its advantage, and I was in bed next to my wife Chantel on my Steam Deck, headphones on, and I was just bawling. I was like crying, just like, oh God. And that's one of the games this year that made me swell up. It was a beautiful game, absolutely amazing. And just to randomly find it on Steam, made by the one person, obviously with a bunch of contractors and things like that, but it was a very, very special game. One that I'll remember for the rest of my life. It really was special, and just how up my alley it was with playing as a border collie dog and all of that. It was special. So this is a recommendation to anyone out there. Please go and support this game. Go and buy it if you haven't already. Amazing, amazing game. And it's not even super linear as well. Like, there's parts of the game where you're going from island to island and you're on a kayak, and you can actually choose where you want to go. Like, you can go to any island, and on certain islands there's this sort of side quests where you get more story, where you talk to other characters. Like, for example, there's an island where like one of the islanders asks if you can help round up his sheep, and you get sort of more information about your mother through that, being like, oh, look, your mother liked this, and the characters are talking back and forth. There's a lot of moments like that in there as well, which I really appreciate. So yeah, there's plenty to do in this game. I think I finished in about 8 hours, but if you want to do all the content, it's probably about a 15-hour game all up, if you want to get everything out of it. So yeah, one of the best games I played last year, and one that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. I feel like I'm definitely one of the people that's trying to push it the most. But yeah, definitely the surprise of 2024. One of the best games I've played in a very long time. Number 2 is Stellar Blade, and man, I love Stellar Blade. It's such a flashy, fun action game, and this was shown at a State of Play. That's when it first got my attention. PlayStation stepped in and published the game. South Korean studio, so a different flavor of games opposed to as far as like Asian games go, opposed to like Japanese games. We're getting a lot of Chinese games now as well, with like Black Myth Wukong, things like that. I think it's cool to get sort of different flavors of Asian made games. So yeah, this was one of those where it looks so flashy and fun. Obviously the protagonist Eve, very provocative, she's very tight clothes, a lot of different costumes you can wear that, sometimes you want to dress her up as a nerdy librarian, sometimes you just want to there's actually a costume in the game where you just got like a skin suit on, and it makes the game harder because you got no defense. So it's interesting how they play into the gameplay mechanics like that. But I would consider this as like a Souls-like game, and I think if you're actually into Souls, you probably say, well, not really, but to me, it's a challenging game. You got campfires once you heal up. your enemies return, all of that type of thing. And it's the highlight of the game is the boss fights. And this is my first type of Souls game. I've always been the type of person that's like, I don't want to deal with like a hard difficulty spike. I don't want to have to deal with like versing the one boss all week, because as a father, I kind of just want to sit down at night time, 9 o'clock, kids are in bed, I'm finally done the dishes, whatever I need to do. I just want to sit down and play a game, and I really need to make progress. Like those 3 hours or whatever, I need to make progress. I can't just be spinning my wheels on a boss. But Stellar Blade, I feel like just the aesthetic really drew me in. I'm a big fan of Gravity Rush, for example. You can see correlations there, and just like the overall art style and all of that. So yeah, the combat was great. It actually gave me a real good taste of what it's like to be a Souls fan, because early on the bosses are quite easy, and full transparency as well, I put this game on easy mode. And what easy mode does is, obviously makes the bosses a bit easier, but also gives you like it didn't work all the time. I don't know why necessarily, but it gives you like a freeze moment. So like it comes up with like the button prompt to like do the defense or something like that. And I needed that just to sort of get like come to grips with like the mechanics and all of that. Like I can't just jump straight into it, like just like parry and so I was really appreciative for that. So unlike a Souls game, there was a difficulty level. So I played on easy, and for the most part, the first few bosses, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. I'm working through the game, and the world's interesting, very mysterious, sort of working out what's going on. You're like this android that's been, well, you're Eve, who's been dropped onto the planet, and you're working out what happened to like humans as society. There's different races, different creatures, species as well. There's been conflict between them, and it's an interesting backstory that you're learning through dialogue as well as sort of notes on the ground. And there's like dead like soldiers that you can read their diary entries, and all that type of typical video game stuff. So as you're going through, the intrigue's building up, and towards the end, like when the game finished, I felt like it was a really actually satisfying story. I really enjoyed it, and there's a few different endings as well, which are quite interesting depending on what you choose, how much of the game you beat, and all of that type of thing. But the bosses, like towards the end of the game, like there were some bosses that took me a long time, and I was feeling that like, just one more go. If I did this, if I do that, and I felt myself getting better and better and better at the parrying, more familiar with the abilities that I was using, and it gave me a taste of what makes Souls games so addictive, just coming back to them again and again. And there was one boss in particular, like all of the bosses actually, they have like awesome music. You're feeling pumped up. You got the headphones on, and you're just locked in. You're locked in, just like there is no like, looking to the side, looking at the clock. Like you're locked in. You're making sure they're doing perfect dodges. You're parrying. You're attacking when you can. It really did get its hooks in me. So when the game finished, and this was the first time this year, or last year, when this happened to me, I was really looking at the New Game Plus mode. I'm like, I want to play again. If I wasn't trying to do my game challenge, if I didn't want to touch more games this year to discuss them on the YouTube channel, the podcast, all this type of thing, if I was just like doing exactly what I want to do right now, it would be to go back and replay Stellar Blade straight away, try and get the Platinum Trophy, because like the gameplay was so fun, and I just want to go back and be like, all right, I can smash that boss this time. I can, do this. And there's a boss rush mode, which I did go back into and try all the different difficulties. There's you can choose the difficulty. You can choose if you've got like max health. You can choose if you've got like, least amount of health. It's really cool. So the boss rush mode. It was interesting to go back to a boss that I really enjoyed playing, which was really hard. And I put it on easy. I'm like, cool, beat it. Then I put it on normal. I'm like, ooh, bit harder. Then I'm like, yeah. If I put it on hard, I just had no chance. So it was interesting just tinkering around with the gameplay mechanics and the difficulty settings. And it is a great video game. It's fantastic. So it gave me the itch. It really did. I don't have the itch to go and play Elden Ring, for example, but I did pick up a copy of Lies of P on PlayStation 5. Another game that I've heard great things about, heard it has a great story, and that has difficulty settings. You can sort of, minimize and maximize your experience that way. And yeah, it's given me the itch, not for the Souls games, but for other companies trying Souls-like games. So Stellar Blade, awesome stuff. Can't recommend it enough. And I really hope there's a second one, because if they keep building upon this world and the gameplay and all of that, really special series in the making. So can't wait. I think it seems like they've had great success over the Christmas break. The studio bought PS5 Pros for everybody, so it seems like they're going well. Hopefully that's the thing you do if you're successful, because if you're not, we all know how expensive the PS5 Pro is. Pretty expensive, so don't bankrupt with yourself, I've got a few games here that the studio's gone out of business. Don't you do it either. Don't do it again. And that brings us to number 1, my favourite game of 2024, the game that I had the most fun with, the game that I think back on and just think, dude, what a perfect video game. How fun was that as I played through the whole thing? And of course, if you know my tastes, if you've heard me before, but you can also maybe guess as well. It's not a unique opinion. The Game Awards, everybody voted on this one. Other people have voted on this one. It's Astrobot. Astrobot by Team Asobi over at PlayStation. This was an amazing 3D platformer, one of my favourite games of the year, and it truly captures that Nintendo magic in a different way, in a different vibe, on a different platform from a different team, and it truly did blow my hair back. I enjoyed Astrobot Rescue Mission on the PlayStation 5 at launch. It is Rescue Mission, or was that the VR one? I haven't played the VR one, but yeah, at launch on PlayStation 5, that was amazing. That was my favorite game at launch, and I had like Miles Morales. I had what else I have? I bought not Dark Souls. What's it called? Demon's Souls. I bought that. I haven't actually played that, but yeah, I bought a few games. But yeah, the Astrobot free game was my favorite one. And ever since then, I'm like, if they make a full one of these, 100% day one, jumping into it, it's going to be awesome. And it really was. It was so much fun to jump into these worlds. And it's like the Super Mario Galaxy we've all been waiting for, apart from Nintendo actually making one. Relatively linear levels, plenty of collectibles with the bots that are fun in themselves, just to sort of see who they are, and you get a bit of a kick out of seeing like a character you recognize. And as far as like the PlayStation characters they pick from first party, second party, and third party, like it's always fun to see like who it is. Oh, that's like that's Nathan Drake, who's an obvious one. But there's a lot who are like, I don't know who that is, but maybe you're somebody who knows who it is. Like it's from like your favorite game series, which is incredibly niche and nobody knows. But you get a massive kick out of seeing it. So that's a lot of fun in itself. But just the gameplay, having Astro being controlled by just one button, the X button, just jumps, press it again to hover. And actually, no, there's the square button that does like the spin punch too. But yeah, a very basic game as far as like gameplay and what you can pull off. But it's all about the level design, the vibe about it, how like all the power-ups are so fun to use because they're fun to play, and also just how the DualSense plays into it as well. One of the best utilizations of the DualSense controller, how you can feel the triggers, the vibrations, everything about it just feels amazing. And it's a game where every level feels unique, something different, something that takes you back, that's just fun to pull off. It's just an amazing 3D platformer, and I feel like the 3D platformer usually gets overlooked unless it's Mario. And in some ways that's because just how times have changed. I think like narrative-based experiences, when they're pushed to their technical limits, are more impressive, just because like you're wowed out by what's on screen. You're also wowed by just like the story and how that's affecting you as well. But when it's through pure gameplay, hey, like this is just so much fun to interact with. And I think as well, like we don't get any of these games really, apart from indie studios or on Nintendo. And Nintendo, they make amazing games. They make games that hold up for the rest of time. They make just amazing games. But what you don't get on Nintendo is just a real technical powerhouse console to be on. And this game really does utilize that to its advantage. Like, when you finish a level, it might drop like a bunch of bolts for no reason. A bunch of balls, a bunch of bits of fruit, whatever. And you've got like hundreds of them on screen. You can just spin through them and interact with them, and just the amount of physics and items on screen at a time. There's no reason, but it just plays into that playfulness that's just so much fun to interact with. There's no mission. There's no like, oh, I've got to get all the balls in the basket and all of this. It's just fun. It takes me back to like the Mario 64 days where you go to Bob-omb Battlefield and you're just jumping around. You're not even going for the stars. You're not collecting the coins. You're just like flying through the air. You're doing triple jumps. You're throwing Bob-ombs. You might get rid of the chain chomp. You go to the top of Bob-omb Battlefield on the hill. You jump off of it. Like, you're just having fun interacting with the game. And a lot of these sort of physics-based things that the PlayStation 5 is able to pull off is just fun. And it's something you don't get on Switch, and you won't get on Switch too. So, yeah, the PlayStation 5 platform offers a lot as far as just its technical powerhouse that it's able to bring. And having a relatively small game, a small studio, being Team Asobi making this game is great, but it's also not a tiny team. Like, as far as like an indie team goes, like a team of 60 so people is massive. So it's quite a big game for this type of genre as well. So yeah, going through this game, how I played it was I was 100%ing a world each night throughout the week after the game come out. So I'll get home from work, I'll be tired, I'll be, got the kids to bed, all of this, but then I'll play through just a whole world of Astro Bot, make sure I get all the bots, all the challenges in the one night, and I finished it and platinumed it over the course of a week, and every night was just so much fun. I looked forward to it throughout the day to get home and to be able to play. And when I beat it, man, I'm like, man, kind of sucks. It's over. Like, I've got nothing else to do. I haven't actually gone back and done the DLC. There's been free challenge modes, time trials. There's been like a Christmas level as well, which I hear is quite great. So I need to go back and play that. That'll be really fun. But yeah, at the time, man, I was like, man, I just want to be able to keep playing. I just want to play more. And I think that's really sort of highlights my top 5 games for this year. It's just like Astro Bot and Stellar Blade especially. I was like, oh man, I just want to go back and play it again. It was just awesome. And unlike the other games that I've talked about, like Astro Bot didn't have a story. It was just pure gameplay. It was so much fun. And there's been like a lot of talk, like, oh, is it better for Mario? Has Mario got a competitor? All this stuff. It's like, I don't know, man. It definitely is pushing Mario. And the next Mario's got, it's going to be better and worse and different in other ways, I dare say. But yeah, Astro Bot, one of the best PlayStation 5 games that Sony's released. And that's awesome and hilarious at the same time that they're able to get this much recognition. I hope it shows the Sony, like, even if it's not the 10 million seller that you would hope a Last of Us or God of War or any of these other franchises that are massive for them, I hope it shows to them that it's worth keeping teams like Team Asobi around, because it really does make the platform unique and special, having these types of games on the platform alongside God of War and Last of Us and all of that. A game that I can share with my kids, a game that I can go back to and play years afterwards. A really special game. So I hope it's a highlight to Sony as well, that they need to keep doing this type of thing, because it's awesome, and do other types of genres and have other smaller games, because PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita, like back in the the 2010s, PlayStation were the kings of this type of thing. They had so many cool games, but people didn't care about them, and they found their success through the bigger games like Uncharted and God of War and all of this type of thing. So they're doing what the people are voting for with their wallets, and I hope people are voting with their wallet for this game, because it truly was special. So yeah, that brings us to the end of my 25 favorite games of 2024. Absolutely love doing this. It was a lot of fun. If you got to this point of the video or the podcast, let me know in the comments what your favorite games of 2024 were. If you got time, give me a top whatever you got list. Top 100, top 25, top 5, or just your favorite game. I love to hear it. So yeah, let me know. And of course, if you want to listen to this type of thing on podcast services, the audio version, you can go to the iDruby Gamescast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of that, and you can listen to it in the car, audio only, and have fun with it that way. But until next time, guys, thank you very much, and happy gaming.